So in today's video, what we got going on is I am working on the Widebody Mustang, trying to make good progress on that thing, but that progress quickly comes to a halt as I realize I do not have some of the correct parts that I need. So then we pivot to work on this motorcycle tank and rear fender, doing some crazy custom work. This is going to be a good one, so let's get started. All right, so really quickly, before we get into that action, I want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's video, Foxwell. And more specifically from them, what we have here is the Foxwell NT604 Elite, and this is one of Foxwell's best-selling diagnostic tools. And before we get into all of the crazy cool features, I wanted to let you know that there is an Amazon link in the description down below, so that'll make it super easy to pick up your own if you want to do so. NT604 Elite 4-system scanner. So a couple things that's really cool about this scanner here is it works on all vehicles, whether it's Ford, Honda, Cadillac, Chevy, GM, well, GM being Chevy, Cadillac. This thing works across all of the vehicle lines. And another thing that's really neat is it shows live data for 4 major systems: engine, transmission, ABS, as well as airbag systems. So I wanted to give you some live action on this. This right here is a 6-liter Cadillac Escalade. All right, so as we are sitting in the car right here, I'll do my best to try to show you the screen. One of the coolest things that I like to see about this is we have live data. For example, I can see engine RPM. The tachometer on this thing has seen better days and it's not working. So there's also stuff on here for coolant temperature, fuel trim, all that stuff, anything that you'd ever want to see on there. All right, so another thing that I wanted to get into is the actual diagnostics themselves. So if you can see, for me, I just pick America. We are doing the Cadillac Escalade, so I am going Cadillac. We want to do a quick scan because that is the goal for right now. So as you can see, all the code reading functions that it's doing, from ABS, SRS, all the functions, and from there we can even get more focus. For example, going to the powertrain, trouble codes, read codes, see what codes come up, and it'll show me the codes that came up that we are definitely going to need to address. Also, another thing that I think is really cool is we have the battery test, so we can see that it's running right at 14.5, 14.3, 14.8, I'd say a 14.5 average. We can scan codes, figure out what's wrong with it, fix what's wrong with it, then erase the codes, rerun it, make sure that we actually fix the issue. And just like that, we got the Escalade in good shape. So thanks again to Foxwell for sponsoring today's video, as well as making an overall really solid tool. So now let's get back to today's video. Hey, so what is up and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me yet again on another video. So with the beautiful Widebody Mustang, this thing, Girth Brooks. When I first got this car, I was kind of batting around the idea of what kind of funky names that I'd want to go with, and I don't always go with funky names, and Girth Brooks was just kind of a joke. I never ended up going with it. I've just been referring to it as the Widebody Mustang. This car has been a little bit of a drag for me, to be honest, just because of figuring out parts, doing different things here and there, and it's just been a little bit slow for me, but I want to make some really good progress. So the first thing that I want to start off doing is this company Dinovox reached out. They carry a bunch of stuff for a bunch of different cars, from newer stuff, older stuff, and I wanted to utilize some of their headers. So I put a link down below. Support the people that are directly supporting the build and supporting the channel and whatnot. So go ahead and check them out. This isn't like a paid promotion or anything like that. They just are helping me out with this. So let's go ahead and throw these guys on. This is something that I've been needing because of the stock cast ones are nasty. This motor's not going to make crazy horsepower, so we don't need anything that's massive or anything, but these guys will definitely flow a lot better than what was on there. So let's go ahead, get these thrown on. Then we have some wiring that we need to finish up. I also got a few boxes from Harley. Harley has been a huge part of this build with their intake manifold. We have like a little ignition box here, some more adapters and whatnot. So we have stuff for Harley that needs to go on. We got the headers that need to go on, and I want to start to work towards getting this thing fired up. It's been a long time coming, and I need to hear this motor start. Even if it's just for a second, even if we don't have a radiator, we need to have and feel some life in this thing, so that way I can have motivation to get it going towards the paint process, because the paint process is what I am looking forward to. I want to see this thing looking not like a dorky old cartoon. All right, let's throw it on a time lapse and let's get busy. out to Harley. We have the ignition coil as well as the ignition box. I have it in an area that I like it. We are just going to have to wire it in. We have the wiring here waiting. This all works with the distributor and all those things. That is all good. I'm happy with where that is thus far. Now, one thing is, those headers that I got, they were for like an older Mustang or something. That's the only thing that they had for a 302 SBF, small block Ford 302. I figured they would work in the Foxbody Mustang, but unfortunately they kind of shoot right at the firewall, so I could either rework the headers, but if I rework them, we would have to get into the collector, and I'm not just reworking one pipe, I would have to rework basically the whole thing. So it wouldn't really be worth reworking it. I could cut out the firewall, but to me that's just ridiculous to cut out the firewall for some headers. That one thing that I saw that I'm kind of liking how it looks, I might have to relocate the battery, but that's okay. But if you can see how that's looking right there, that looks pretty cool. Should run the upside down boy. So I'm thinking with this, the battery's in the way. Let me pull out the battery. We might have to put this on the other side anyways, but we kind of have everything already set up for over here, but that's how it goes when you build stuff. So maybe I'll just move the battery box over there. Then we have this guy right here. Then we can kind of circle back this way, shoot it out the side, maybe do some kind of a blast pipe or Cobra pipes behind the side skirts. This to me is a little bit wild, but what's not wild about a wide body Fox body Mustang that was built in the early 90s? I could kind of see this shooting right out there, and I don't hate that. Then we don't have to cut the firewall, we don't have to rework the headers, and we don't have to buy new headers. The only thing that I don't like is the driver's side is not a mirror image to the passenger side. If both of them ended up like this, and then they can turn 90 out, that would be really cool. So what I think the next step is, I'm still thinking about this. Don't get caught up with this. Let me see what the other side looks like if I flip it upside down, because with them not, like with that not upside down and with the one upside down, I don't absolutely love it. So let me just flip it and see where it goes and see what it does and then decide from there. So from that last clip, we have had some time pass where I've just been figuring out a lot of things, and we have some issues going on with the wide body Mustang. This is the gift that keeps on giving, messing around with this car and all of the components on it, and we are just figuring out a lot of things as we go. So I have the Harley Terminator X on here for the Fox body Mustang. Now, this is a Fox body Mustang, but nothing about the Mustang itself is Fox body anymore. Every single thing is standalone. So the problem that we just figured out now is we have the LS intake manifold top half, but it's the Ford high ram lower half, but it was built to fit in everything, but now we have all LS components. One of those components is an IAC. Now LS's use a 4-wire IAC where Fox bodies use a 2-wire IAC, and there's absolutely no way to make them communicate with one another because they are completely different styles altogether. So our Fox body wire harness that I got from Harley is not going to work with this setup. So I got in contact with Harley, they got me set up. We have a new harness coming, which is more of their universal application, because this is more of a universal setup. So the idea that this was going into a Fox body Mustang wasn't correct, because every single thing is just not Fox body anymore. We don't have Fox body IAC, we don't have Fox body anything, so we are waiting on a new harness for this. So we're just going to push this off to the side for now and move on to something else that's really cool. Also, headers. I know I was talking about going upside down with headers, and in all reality, I didn't necessarily want to deal with that, so I just picked up some other ones. I still appreciate the company sending me out those ones that they sent me out. I will shelve those and use them for another project. We kind of took a shot in the dark. Those headers themselves were for a 5.0 on an older Mustang. They weren't necessarily built for a Fox body. I thought, yeah, well, maybe they'll work. We'll see. So let's transition into what I'm working on now. We have a rear fender. Super cool. Custom paint for the rear fender. Also, we have a new used tank. This guy right here, this is the tank that I'm going to be painting. This is the tank that was on the bike that I'm going to be using for color reference, so we are going to go with a silver and similar blue. I just need to use this guy to scan it. Now, one thing is, this was on the old bike. This is going to hopefully go on the old bike, but I had found a problem here. If you can see the distance from that guy to that guy, that is 14 5/8 of an inch. The distance from here to there is 16 inches. So this blue tank was on the bike. We're hoping the new tank will go on the bike, but as of right now, it will not go on the bike. So I have to get in contact with the owner of these parts and explain to him that we do have a problem. Now I could just paint him and say, come pick them up, and act like I never saw it. But that's not how I like to do things. I want to be fully transparent with him. The last thing that I want is for him to get his new tank all excited because it's just been freshly painted, go to put it on the bike and have it not work. We need to address this problem. Even though the tank itself is not going to be modified, I'm going to want to modify it on the frame side because it's a lot easier to cut and grind and mess with a frame that is ultimately going to be covered by a tank rather than cutting into and welding on an old tank that's had gas in it for 30 years or 40 years. So in the background, I will get that figured out, but for this video, what we are going to see is the entire process of me painting this tank and rear fender in a custom way, and that's something that I'm really excited to get into doing more of. Painting motorcycle stuff is really, really cool for me. So right now we have our two pieces ready to go. They are sitting on the table. We have the tank as well as the rear fender. So the first thing that I'm doing this process a little bit different than the ones that I have done in the past. In the past, I just went crazy full coverage metal flake over primer. That full coverage over primer was really nice, and it was fine in the end because I was kind of going for a black and white contrast. With this one, we definitely wanted silver and blue. Now the flake itself does create silver, but I'm going to do a silver layer underneath it just because we kind of were after a specific silver look, and that'll allow me to use a little bit less metal flake in order to get the idea of full coverage. So we're gonna go with silver over everything, metal flake over everything, then clear coat over everything. Then I'm done for the day. After that's done, I need to let that dry overnight. Then I can come back and I can wet sand that clear coat. And on top of that wet sanded clear coat, or really nice sanded clear coat, that's where I can start to do all of my blue layers. That it'll all make sense how they go. If you've seen my other videos where I'm doing metal flake paint jobs or lowrider style paint jobs, you'll be familiar with this process. If not, I'll touch on it a little bit as we go. So let's go ahead and get that knocked out, so that way we can let the clear coat start drying, so that way we can be back to it first thing in the morning. right, so right now we are all sanded, all solid, looking really nice. Now the thing that I'm thinking with this tank is I want to make sure the owner of the tank gets exactly what they want, and they saw the tank that I had most recently done, and they said I really like that. So I need to kind of use that as my baseline, but I need to make sure that I'm not just doing a stamp and repeat from one tank to another, because the owner of the tank that I already did, I don't want him to just have somebody else with the same exact style that he did, but I also need to keep it consistent with the Body Vision vibe, so that way I can kind of start to develop a Body Vision similar aesthetic. So that way people can have an idea of what they're getting when they come to me to get their tank done. So a couple things that I have to consider on here. With the owner of it, I discussed with him what he likes. He likes lace, he likes the sun rays, he likes fish scales. I didn't do fish scales on the last one. I don't want it to be the same exact layout. I don't want to just have two panels on the side, lace on the top, because then it's just going to look like a stamp and repeat. And another thing that I have to consider is we have the rear fender as well. So I have to think of whatever design that I do, I need to make sure that it carries through to the rear fender. I'm thinking whatever's on the side is not going to be tied into the rear. So I think that I want to make the top, I want to have the center kind of a lace, and then fish scales that seem like they're above it, next to it, and crossing over it in some areas. And the reason why I want to tie two up top is because the fender is also considered an up top as well. So the design that I make on the tank, I have to keep the fender in mind, because the fender, we don't want it to just be fully laced out. I want to put two elements on the fender, but I will have more elements on the tank. But again, the side of the tank will not be on the side of the fender, because there is no side to the fender. So what I'm gonna do, I have a couple ideas in mind. I look at the shape of the tank, where the gas cap is placed. This one is nice and centered, where the other one was off center. So it kind of added to the design. It kind of threw some lines throughout in the same area, but with this one being centered, that kind of talks to me in a different way. We also have this fat lip. I'm thinking that on the curl over, I'm going to want to do fish scales, because on the curl over of the rear fender I can do the fish scales, but then on the flat surface I want to do the lace. And then the fish scales are going to kind of be overshadowing into the lace with a line of separation. So all of this is kind of my thought process. On the side we are just going to go with a nice beautiful sunset pattern. Nice really big one, starting at this largest corner, shooting this way, shooting that way, shooting that way. I think that'll look really nice. So the sides are easy. So the next step is we need to start laying out the panels with different size tapes. I'm going to be working with, I believe, 8th and 16th. I think the 16th really fine line looks nicer. The 8th is easier to work with. So we'll kind of start to get some stuff figured out. Enough talking, let's lay out some tape. So we got the fish scales done on the back. As you can see, they are laying down in a way that makes sense. That is where the driver is going to sit. This is kind of like the tail light section zone. As you can see, the tail light goes right there, and it is looking pretty good. So we have the fish scales in there. I also went around and I did the border. Now I could either continue moving on the rear fender, and the next thing that I would want to do is my lace section, or I could just continue to do fish scales and do it on the tank. I think that probably, since I'm in the mindset and the vibe of doing the scales, I'll just finish out the scales. That seems to be reasonable to me, I guess. So yeah, let's just go ahead and put this off to the side, keep doing scales. I'll run it on a time lapse for this one, then we will figure out lace. And all in all, we're just gonna keep jumping around, because eventually if we keep jumping from one place to another, we will run out of places to jump, and then we will be clearing this thing. But I also wanna do a little bit of black shading work, and yeah, it's a process. Alright, so we got the fish scales knocked out. I am happy with how that looks. Now, one thing that I always think to myself, or that I explain to anybody that's wanting to do anything custom, is each individual step. If you do too much on each step, by the time you get to the very last step, you're going to have a culmination of too much. Is the camera blurry, or does it look alright? I felt like it was looking kind of blurry. So yeah, on each step we don't want to do too much. So I like where the scales are at. I'm going to leave them alone. So now I'm going to do a panel that's kind of a combination of sun rays. So that's the technique for this one, sun rays. Once I'm done with sun rays, we are going to do lace on this panel as well as lace on the rear fender. Then we are getting this thing wrapped up. The thing is before I do lace, I have to protect the scales. And if you notice in the scales, I didn't go too crazy and go into where the lace zone is. So all in all, it is looking pretty good. And keep in mind, this gray is not gray. That is heavy metal flake. So this thing is going to look crazy as soon as clear coat goes on it. And these two colors were picked by the owner of the bike, and I think they look really good. So yeah, no reason to slow down. Let's keep rocking. Alright, so here we go. At this point, we definitely have some time into these pieces. I misjudged how long it would take. I was just thinking, okay, the tank's going to take X amount of hours. The fender can't take that much longer because it's not going to be multiple designs. Where in reality, doing all of the fish scales on the fender took quite a bit of time. And it is about to be 9 o'clock. I don't usually work this late, but that's okay. My main goal is, for right now, I want to get the final layer of base coat done. So the rest of it is going to be going blue. Then we can pull off all the tape and then clear it. My goal is by the end of the day, or by the time I go in, I need to get clear coat on these panels so that way as I'm sleeping, the clear can be curing. If I just come out first thing in the morning and work another 2 hours and then clear it, I'm just going to be sitting here not knowing what to do because the clear has to dry. I can't touch it as the clear is drying, so I'd rather have the clear drying as I'm sleeping rather than when I should be working. So let's keep pushing. I got blue mixed up already. This is a beautiful, nice metallic blue. If you are interested in what this is called, this is Surfing Blue Pearl Metallic. Nice metallic on top of that flake. By the time the light hits it, different things are going to be dancing all over the place. And we also have the metallic paint transparent or really light on some of that pearl. So all in all, it is going to be absolute magnifique by the time the sun hits it. I also did some black accents with the airbrush, but I did it strategically only on the panel that I wanted to emphasize was below it. Like this one is below it, but I didn't put it on the edge of the fish scales. Enough talking about it, man. It is getting late. Let's get this blue down so that way we can shoot for that clear, and then we'll see it all in its entirety once it's cleared out. Alright, so now that we are 100% done with base coat, let's go ahead and get this first round of clear coat knocked out. Alright, so right now it is looking absolutely phenomenal, super solid, insane. I almost feel like it's ready to just be sent off, but there is a couple of issues that just naturally happen with the process, and these issues have to be addressed. The number one issue is we have a hard ridge from where the different layers of paint were along with the paint line, so that's just something that I'm not willing to keep. The idea is in the end I want this thing to look as smooth as an 8-ball or any pool ball really, so the only way to get rid of that is to sand these pieces down one final time with 400 grit or finish it off with 400 grit. If it was really rough, you could go down to 320 if you want, but I'm just going to do 420 and 420 only to sand it all nice and smooth, and then after that we will do one final coat of clear, which is technically a flow coat because it is clear over clear, and then once we are done with that we will get some nice beautiful shots so that way you can really see all the flake and everything dancing. I can already see it on my end, but I want to show it to you once it's done. So let's go ahead and get that knocked out, and then we will be done with these pieces. Dude, how sick did these things turn out, man? I think it's super cool to have a custom design on the tank, taking design cues from an area where this was kind of square and then carrying that design all the way through to the back of the bike. You got to figure out what works and then keep it nice and consistent. It's also really nice if, just for example, we did a custom tank with blue as the primary color, and then we did blue front fender, blue rear fender, blue oil cap, or just all the stuff to match. That's one option, or we can go balls to the wall custom on every single piece. If you guys have a bike, if you specifically have a bike that you want me to do something like this to, I've been having such a good time doing these, and you could just ship it over to me and I will get you taken care of. So all in all, just to circle back to the Mustang, we got the wire harness that just came in from Harley. So coming up next week, I think we are going to get back to the wide body Mustang. I want to push really hard to get that thing done because honestly, I'm sick of looking at it. So all in all, let me know what you think about everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like this video, comment, subscribe, do all this stuff. You know what it is, YouTube. I will see you on that next one. I'm out.